Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It's 9 o'clock, which means it's time for a Talk Magic. And today I am here with an incredible performer, and not just an incredible performer, and somebody, by the way, that has been requested to be interviewed on this channel more than almost anybody I know, but also the new president of the International Brotherhood of Magicians. I am talking about the legend, Ken Scott. How you doing, Ken?
Hey, legend. I'm looking. Where are they at? Here they are.
You.
What's up, Craig? How are you? I put the piece of jewelry on for you. There you go, buddy.
Good.
Yeah, you know, it's people kind of make fun of the chain, but I'll tell you, the history is this actually came from the UK. It was presented to us from the UK, and you know, being a guy, I grew up in IBM, as my mom took me to it when I was 12 years old, and so to be president of this organization that I was going to as a kid and met my mentors in, I think I look at these names on here, which you have to get a magnifying glass, look at the names on these chain, but it goes back 100 years, which, you know, next year will be 100 years for IBM. It's hard to believe that it's been around 100 years next year. So
crazy.
yeah.
I want to talk about that, but I mean, quickly to mention, it's fantastic that you're going to be president in the centenary. I mean,
I know, right?
That's awesome. And also,
that wasn't planned. It was just, I think, you know, because it's like a 3-year. You get the way it kind of you go up. You're almost like 3 years in the chain, and someone says, "You do realize that your year, it's a centennial year." I went, "No, I had no idea." So it just kind of worked out that way. So I'm very lucky and very grateful. And we're going to have the convention in Atlanta, so it's my backyard too. So it couldn't have worked out better. So
that's even better. That's perfect. And you have big shoes to fill because your predecessor was Sean Farquhar, right?
Well, this past year was Stephen Bergazzi. So Sean was probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, but yeah, Sean is still on. He's on our board. He's on as a past president. He's also on the convention committee. So he books the talent. I'm the chairman. He books the great talent that we have. So Sean and I work hand in hand. But I think he is on my shoulder here, right there. I think if I touch it, there's Sean's name. Tough to see, but there you go. But no, very proud of this. It's got a lot of history on it. I know it looks like I might just came from a wrestling thing, but it is very nice. I love it. And this thing comes off. Let me just kind of give your camera a little close up on this. And look at that beautiful thing.
Look at that. That is great.
Yeah. So that comes off. And then my wife, who's actually a nurse here in the States, they become the first lady, all right, of magic. And she gets her own little chain. So she went to the hospital where she works in the operating area. And she says, "You are to address me as first lady now." So she really is making a big to-do about this. So so the doctors are now calling her first lady of magic.
That is so awesome. It's brilliant.
Yes. So anyway, this is uncomfortable. So I'm going to take this off and I'm going to come right back to you. Okay.
Okay, no problem.
All right. There you go. I'm back.
Seamless. It was like a quick change. Awesome. But obviously, and I do want to talk about the IBM down the road, but the reason you've been put into this position is there's a lot more to you than just being the president of the IBM. There's a lot more. And I'm going to kind of take a bit of a deep dive into your career, talk about what you've done, where you started, how you got to where you are now, and kind of the road that you took along the way, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we have to start at the very beginning and talk about your origin story. So let me ask the first question. How did you get into magic? Was it your typical coin behind the ear story, or was there something else to it?
It was kind of that way. My grandfather was a comedy. He did stuff for like civic organizations, and he just did comedy. He didn't do magic, but there was a friend of the family who could take his finger off, and when I was like 5, 6 years old, and he would just do this, I just thought that's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And then I get a little older, and then somebody else did a coin trick. But then my mom, I should say Father Claus, Santa Claus, got me this book for Christmas one year, and this was it. This was the book that started me out, and I made every trick in this book. And then I thought, people actually they do this stuff. So then I would gather up twice a year and go to the magic shop with my money I saved from Christmas or my birthday and just buy magic. So it's pretty much like every 8-year-old boy gets the the magic bug, and I buy as much as I can. And as I get older, I realize I love it, but then I get into sports. Also girls kind of take over the situation a little bit sometimes, and magic gets the background. So it kind of left me when I was like 13, and then I came back to it around 16 and 17 and picked it back up again. So there was a loss for several years.
And what pulled you back in? Because, I imagine
Yeah.
sport for girls was still there at 16, probably even more so than when you were 13.
I think it was just I think sports was starting to fade out for me because I was maybe not as good as I wanted to be, and I said, well, I'm not going to be a professional baseball player. So I think I just picked it back up because someone said, don't you do magic? And we'd go to these parties where some of us teenagers would be hanging out, and I would pick it back up and do some magic. And I thought, oh, I forgot how much they do love this. So I never stopped it. In fact, I worked in the summer from the age 13 on with Daytona Magic. We used to travel all over the country doing conventions, and that's kind of where I met Chad Long. It's where I learned how to demo stuff. But again, I was still back when I was in high school during the regular school year. I was stuck on sports, but when the summer came, I was deep into magic with Daytona Magic, working for them on the road. But it was just basically traveling, doing a lecture, setting up their stuff, going to a convention. But it was at that moment where I went to my first IBM convention, which was in Kansas City, I believe, like in '84, I believe it was. And it was where I saw Harry Blackstone Jr. and Mark Wilson. And it was a who's who just walking around. And I was in like, oh, this is so amazing. So, yeah, it was. So it never really left me. I didn't really pursue it as hard as I did when I turned like 17, 18, I think. Yeah.
And how important do you think it is? You say that you've done magic demonstration early on in your career. I was speaking to Marvin from Marvin's Magic a little while ago, and he said that he thinks that all of the best magicians are the ones that have had that experience demoing magic, because you have to get good very, very quickly at grabbing people's attention, and it becomes not about the trick, it becomes about getting them to a point where they love it so much that they're prepared to pass money in order to would you agree with that?
I totally agree. I would almost say it's almost like a type of busking in a way. It's almost being a trade show performer, except you're at a shop and people are ready to come in and see what you have. So yeah, it is kind of like that. I was always, when I was at a convention, I was always kind of the shy guy. They would push the guys who did family show tricks to me, and like, I'll let Ken go show you the trick where you make the monkey jump to side, or the silk jump or something. So that was my forte, was doing the family performing the kid show tricks. But yeah, I totally agree with Marvin on that. I mean, you've got to be these guys that are you can think of the guys who are just great demo people, like Mark Mason. I mean, you could just have him at a convention and just have that be your convention, watch him demo all day. I think that is an art in itself. So there is something to say about those guys that can, make you want to buy this stuff. Then you get home, you go, what did I buy?
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't like to be the dealer with the booth next to Mark Mason, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, or you just get his feet offs, because people I would almost want to be next to him, because I'm like, hey, I got some stuff here too. Come on over here. He's packed right now.
Very good point. Yeah. So you're 16, you've got back into magic. You just said that you really got into it when you were 18. Did you become semi-professional at some point, or when did you turn professional? Was there a period of time where you got a quote unquote proper job? How did that all?
Well, the proper job came when I went to apply at Burger King, and I put on there, it said interest and hobby. I went magic, and so the guy says, you do magic shows? I said, I do. He goes, well, they offered me a job, and at that time we're going to pay you, instead of $3.25 an hour, we're going to pay you $3.50 an hour, but you're going to be our Burger King magician on Saturdays. So you're going to come in here and you're going to do birthday parties, and then when you're not doing that, you'll be cooking burgers. So I'm like, this is great. I was so excited. I'm making 25 cents more than anyone else, and I've got to do birthday parties in this corduroy-looking Burger King uniform. So that was kind of, when I was 16, was like the thing, and that was where I kind of got my first paying gig, I guess you could say. That was, a real proper check. But then that didn't last long, and I just started doing, like Kiwanis and civic functions. Anywhere I could go to start doing shows, I was doing shows everywhere. Scout events, church events, you name it, I was doing it and trying to get money at it. So Yeah, that's, I mean, birthdays. I mean, I still do birthdays, but I make a lot more money than I did back in those days.
Yeah, right.
I hope.
So what advice would you give somebody? Because I have a lot of new people watching this channel. And the question I have come up over and over again is, hey, I love magic. I've done it as a hobby. I want to go professional. I want to make my living doing this. I love doing it. As somebody who's obviously gone professional and made that decision at some point, what advice would you give somebody? Like, is there a right or a wrong time to do it? Or,
You know, it's funny you said it, because I used to say that when kids ask it, they probably should go another route. Then when an adult asks you that wants to get out of the corporate world to get into it, you probably should say go for it. But it might be the opposite. Because I think if you're going to do it, the best time to try to go for it is when you are young, when you really have nothing, your credit sucks, and you don't really have a house note, maybe not a family yet. So I say go for it when you're young. If you've got the chops, you've got what you think. The problem is that too many of these guys, I say too many of the young ones want to get into it, and they want to go for the top stuff right away, and they're just not prepared for it. And I just think there is a crawling process before you get to the ultimate thing. They want to skip a lot of steps. And I think that there's a lot of steps. There's a lot of things to learn. One, just be in business. I know we talk about show business, but if you don't know the business of this, then you're probably going to be very frustrated, because the magic is great, but you got to have the business side of it too. So, and a lot of guys don't have that. Even adults don't have it. I think we're still learning it too, though.
I totally agree with you. I think that the problem is a lot of people go full time and they expect to just be doing magic and magic and magic and nothing else. And in reality, when you're a full-time magician, probably 80% of it is anything but magic. It's doing the admin and the marketing and the social media and the sales and the bookkeeping, and that's the stuff that magicians tend to hate, isn't it?
And which is typically what will get you, what you'll probably die out on, and you probably say, I'm not, this is not for me, because you're going to just get contracts or this or that, paying, doing this, taking those taxes out for this. It's not the fun part that people think about when you do magic shows. I think it was Martin Lewis who used to say something too about, we don't get paid to do performing, we get paid to travel, which is almost the same as this. We don't get paid to do magic. We get paid to do all the office work that we have to do sometimes, unless you're lucky enough to have an office and assistant. But I don't think we work so hard that I think we're really getting paid just to do the administration work in what we do, and putting things together, I think. So, but it's a whole nother world. And I think it's forever changing and learning too. The moment we think something is done as far as marketing end of it, it comes back. Like we always thought these email blasts were the thing. Now email blasts are kind of on the way out, and sending a proper postcard in the mail is coming back again. Mm-hmm. So what we thought was dead is now coming back. So never let one thing go, and maybe try everything. There's some people in my market who, this is another good thing that my mentor told me, don't find what your market's going to be and then go after that. Don't try to be every market. Don't try to be the trade show. Don't try to be the company. Don't try to be the family show. Don't try to be every market, because you're going to fall short on those. And what I did, I really focused in when I was much younger on birthdays. I wanted birthdays to be my big thing, and I just focused in on that and didn't really focus on anything else. But once I got the birthdays, I would say on autopilot, I would let that go and then get into something else. Maybe it was going and doing school shows, because that's a whole nother beast, and library shows here in the States. So once one thing was doing really well, I would kind of get into another thing. And then slowly I was doing these kid shows and family shows. I realized that these people were booking me for corporate parties, because I didn't even think about it, but they were like, this is very funny. I think we enjoyed it more than the kids did. And that's just kind of, it was, I've always enjoyed performing for adults, but my show's always been written for the family. And I think that's how I started getting my corporate work, was merely from birthday parties at kids' parties, because I was doing funny lines like you would see at a Disney, Pixar flick, where the parents would get the line, but the kids wouldn't get it. So I was doing funny things and good magic. I was doing good magic that the parents were not sitting back there texting during my show. They were really into the show. So that's big on my character, and that's kind of how I got into doing company parties and so forth. So, and that's a tough thing to do. A lot of guys can't come from corporate world, do kid shows, and a lot of kid shows guys can't go do a corporate show. It's a balance there.
It really is. It really is. And a couple of things I want to pick up on there. One, you're absolutely correct about performing kid shows to the adults in the audience. After all, they're the ones that are going to be booking the parties, right? Not the kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
If an adult's there enjoying it, they'll be like, "Oh, let's get that guy. It was amazing." So I totally agree with that. And I don't see enough. I see so many kids magicians, and they just play it, and the adults at the back aren't paying attention.
Right. Well, you're there as a babysitter, as what we're called, and I think my ego took the best of me. I didn't want to be the babysitter. If there's one mom or dad texting during my show, it is I'm doing everything I can to get them in my show. If it's that one person, you know. But yeah, but there are some people that's just their character, though. I mean, their character is to do just kid shows, and I get that. And that wasn't my character. I can't put. Like Silly Billy, he could put the big glasses on and the suspenders and pull it off. I could never pull that off. You got to either trust that character, or you got to trust what you're doing and not be someone else. And my character was be the kind of the guy next door, but can do some really cool tricks. Almost like the guy that the parents want to talk to. Like the dad wants to come talk to me after the show and talk about sports or something. So that's kind of how I've done with it the last 20 plus years.
And how do you have any advice on how to do that? How do you play a show so that it works for adults and works for kids? Because anybody that's watching this, that's listening to your advice and thinking, yeah, that makes sense, I want to do that. Is there any advice of how to structure a show? Does it come down to scripting, or is it trick selection, or is it just your approach to everything? Like, what is it?
All the above. First, scripting. I'm not a huge scripter. I write my script out, but if you've done kid shows, people know a script with a kid show. If you can't zig and zag at a kid show, you are going to be the Titanic. You're going to go. It's not going to work for you. So a script works well when you're doing a trade show, when you're promoting a product. But at a kid show, when a kid pees his pants or does something over here, you've got to be ready to do this, And if you can't zig and zag, it is not the market for you. As far as how I want to get their attention, I think we're on, it was explained to me, and I think we all agree, we had to talk about this, is that everyone's on Amazon Prime Time. We want it right then. Our short attention span, we want it then, we want it now. And I think a long drawn out routines in these particular times doesn't work in that type of environment with kids and adults. You got to do something quick. You got to hit them. You got to hit them. You got to hit them again. But then it's got to be a ride too. You got to, give them some breaks. It's like a roller coaster. But at the beginning of my show, I'm just doing some silly, goofy balloon things that I look like I have no idea what I'm doing. And it's just to get their attention. But then I've also got music playing. I try to pick music that I think that era of parents will like, not so much the kids will like. It's funny, when I pick a song, the parents may know it from the 80s or maybe from the 90s. But the kid will go, "Oh, that's in Trolls." See, that all that music comes back. So if I can find music that the parents loved when they were younger and the kids like it now because it's in movies, I'm one step up. So that's one thing I like to do, is play music that gets there, that they can at least hear at the beginning. But just getting at the beginning, just doing something real quick, doing something like Four Nightmares, a rope trick at the beginning that takes like all of 40 seconds, but it's good magic. And the parents kind of go, "Whoa, okay, I didn't see that coming." Yeah, so yeah, and I'm not my character's not. I'm surprised that my stuff works as they are. Like, I'm not like, "Look at me." I'm like, "Oh my God, did you see that?" And you're not even clapping for that. Why aren't you clapping? That kind of character. So
that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And you know what? I want to pick up one more thing with kid shows and family shows, which is, you're absolutely right in that. I've always found, at least over here in the UK, even if you're in turbulent times like COVID, for example, parents always want to put a good show on for their kids. They always want, even if somebody's struggling for money and we're in the middle of a recession or whatever it may be, parents will try their hardest to find the money to put a special event on for their child's birthday.
Absolutely.
And when I see a lot of the close-up guys that are struggling and they're like, "Oh, I'm getting no work at the moment," the kids guys and the family entertainers, they're always busy, because I think that's a market. I'm not going to say it's going to ever go away, but that's a market that's so solid because of a parent's desire to, to
Yeah.
make their child's birthday special.
I couldn't agree more. Like in 2008, when we had the housing market bust over here, and then we had the recession here in the States, it was a lot of people struggled. And I found myself staying, right there where I needed to be. It was tough, but I stayed there, and it was the birthdays. And I will say it's been the birthdays that's kind of kept me going this past year, during the pandemic. It's been the birthdays, because you're right. Parents want the best for their kids. And this past year has been difficult for parents because a lot of them had to do virtual birthdays. And who'd have ever thought you would have a virtual birthday party for your kid? If you'd have told me that 2 years ago, Craig, I'd have said, you're crazy as hell. Never going to happen. Who would have thought that? With the words to think we would be talking on Zoom wasn't even our vocabulary 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So but you're right. Parents want the best, but I also think what I've seen, parents want to have a nice party, but they also want to have it for their friends. I noticed that over here, the parents aren't just, they're staying at the parties now. Maybe it's because they know they're going to have a fun magic show. Maybe it's going to be a fun party for the adults. I don't know. Who knows? But parents are sticking around and watching. I often hear parents go, you got to come watch this. You got to come see this. Mm-hmm. And when I get that, then I know that the word's getting out. I would say about 80% of my work comes from people seeing me at a show. That's where 80% of my shows, I'll get another. If I do a party for 20 kids, I'll book at least 3 or 4 of those kids, parties in the next year. Mm-hmm. So it's a constant. Then it's the siblings. Then it's going to their schools. So I turn a lot of these people into clients. They become like friends of mine, and they follow me, and I know them. And so and I think goes back to the business part. If you can build a relationship with these people, and not be so much as a customer, but really treat them as a true client and as a friend, they want to support you even through the bad times. And that's come through for me here during these bad times. They want to support, the guy that's doing the show for them. So,
absolutely. Yeah. Now here's a question for you. I've been banging on this channel over and over again about how more entertainers should do kid shows for that very reason. And one thing that comes back to me is, you can't market kid shows in corporates, because if a corporate event planner is looking for conference entertainment, for example, they're not going to go for the guy that does the kid shows. Now, I disagree with that because I do both, and I know you do as well. But have you got any advice on how an entertainer can market themselves as a family entertainer, but also at the same time not lock themselves out of that kind of lucrative corporate market?
Yeah, well, for me, as far as, like I said, going back to what I said about the kid shows, it's merely the parents. When I was getting that compliment that we think we enjoyed it more than the kids did, and I didn't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing, but that I'm constantly getting that a lot. So I know that they're enjoying my humor, my magic. So that in itself, and it's something I don't do right now. I should have an entire separate site just for my corporate end. That way they don't see me doing balloons or floating a kid. Right now, I just have one generic site that does all my work for me. But again, most of my work comes from word of mouth, and it's not the site. The site's just there as a tool that they can go to and look at my stuff. But I would say you've got to the show's got to be there from the start for you to do those events. But then when you start getting into other work, maybe it's a school market, maybe it's a fair. But if you're doing the stuff that the parents are going to enjoy, it should come naturally. At least it did for me. I pulled out stuff that the parents just loved. And they go, now you're going to do a different show, right? I go, I don't know. You enjoyed that one so much. Let's just do this one. Jokingly, of course, I say that to them. But again, it just comes down to material and your confidence of entertaining them at the same time entertaining these kids. I think that's your tool right there.
That's great. Yeah. And do you have any advice? Again, another question that I get on this channel an awful lot. And you're definitely the person to answer this. Dealing with nerves and stress, especially going on stage, because the question I get over and over again is, I want to be a stage magician, or I want to be a stand-up magician. I want to do conferences or whatever it may be, but I'm a kids entertainer or I'm a close-up guy. And the thought of putting myself into that situation scares me to death. I start sweating, my hands start shaking, and I can't focus. And it
Yeah.
is a problem. Now, you've put yourself in some very stressful situations. Most recently, the presidency of the IBM. I mean, you can put yourself into some. You're definitely going outside your comfort zone over and over again. So
Yeah.
how do you deal with stress and nerves? Is there?
Yeah. I would say there's two stresses. There's one stress that we all, if we want to separate it from lay audience to magicians, but let's just, most people that are listening, most people that are watching are doing shows for the regular person paying them. So we could talk about magician fear in a moment. That's completely different. A fear that we talk about in front of the lay audience who pays our paycheck. My nervousness comes down if I'm trying new material out. If I get to an event where I want to get there and be comfortable in my time. I don't want to be rushing in, setting up, and be out of breath. I want to get there, know my stuff's working, my electronics working. I want to make sure everything's set. I can chill. When I don't have that moment, when I don't have that time to get there and take my time setting up, make sure everything's prepared right, that's when my nerves start setting in a little bit. So that's part of it. If you can get yourself there early, if it's 2 hours, do it, because you're going to feel better. Then you can go through the show in your head. You can look in the audience and see where you can go over here. Where can I take this thing over here to over here? How can I connect with that guy back there? And you can just feel the room better when you just see an empty room, and I can figure out what I'm going to do with it when people do come in there. But if I'm coming there when they're eating dinner, if I'm coming there setting up while they're doing it, people staring at me, then the nerves come on. They go, oh. The worst is when you go to like a corporate event, if it's full of like doctors or attorneys, and they just want to go home, but they got to be there because their bosses say, hey, we're going to have this meeting. We got this magician. And they're like, oh, dear God, a magician, And so then you got to break this barrier here, when they're like this. All right, magic boy. So those are nerves. So there's a whole barrier thing that you got to break down with them. But then we talk about magician, like we talk about being president. I think our nerve, if we perform for our peers, like other magicians, I think we all get nervous. I know I can go in front of my club at my IBM ring, and these guys are just hobbyists, but I'm sitting there a nervous wreck. Why I'm nervous in front of these people. I've done this trick 1,000 times yet. I'm sitting there, I can feel myself starting to shake. But I just think that we all get a little bit nervous in front of our peers, and we feel almost relieved when we're done and we get the accolades from magicians saying, oh, that was great. So I think it's two different nerves for that. But I think as far as the lay audience, that's one that we care about the most because that's when it pays the bills.
That's, again, amazing advice. And do you do, I think of you as a family entertainer and a stand-up entertainer. Do you do close-up, Ken?
I do. I actually worked, that's where I kind of got my chops. Now, I can do the basic stuff. I can do top change, that kind of stuff. I'm not going to sit there and knuckle bust to death because I figured I've learned what I can do and what I don't need to do. But I did strolling magic at a family restaurant for 12 years, every Sunday for 4 hours. And I got to do this from 97 until, I was 12 years after that, until I just moved on. It was just getting to be too much. But 4 hours every Sunday for the same audience. It would be the Baptist, the Catholic. It would be the church comes at different times. And I would see these kids grow up from 1-year-olds to be 12-year-olds. And you're talking about having to learn material. You're talking about John Bannon. I went through his material every week. Mike Close's material every week. I was going through, back and then I had the videos. I was scrubbing the DVDs, the videos, learning the new tricks and stuff just to put in to my next Sunday's gig for 4 hours because I had to learn new stuff. I mean, Magic Menu by Jim Sisti saved my life back in those days. If you remember Magic Menu.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
So yeah, I can do enough close up to definitely keep me hired, but I'm not going to be like Aussie Win kind of close up magic, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, I think a lot of people that become hobbyists, I think they have to learn all these knuckle busting moves, and you have to be the next Assy Wind or the next Leonard Green in order to achieve anything. And it's nice to be able to do that stuff, but ultimately, I think personally, the most important thing is developing a relationship with the people.
Absolutely, man, completely. And I think that's why I let my ego get the best of me, and I didn't. It wasn't until this past year I realized the invisible deck. I'm like, never going to do it. And I pulled it out and did it for the Zoom shows, and I forgot how much the lay audience loves that trick, you know, truly love that trick. And so it took me back thinking, maybe I put a lot of these things that are really, that I didn't think that were that, are just, you know, out of the mainstream. We didn't think it was that cool for us to do. Magicians frowned at us if we pulled out the invisible deck. Magicians frowned at us if we brought out a cartoon deck, you know, the little guy on it, you know. But I soon realized these guys, a lot of these big guys were doing the same stuff on Zoom stuff. So it must not have been that bad. But I went back and pulled out stuff that I put away, and I went, that's good magic. So yeah, I think as long as your character can drive it. Who was it? I think it was Penn and Teller who did a whole ball and vase routine, if I'm not mistaken, right? With a little plastic ball and vase.
Yeah.
I mean, they pulled off an entire routine with ball and vase. And I thought that was genius. I think that was a slap at magicians to say, hey, see, you could do anything as long as people love you.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Yeah. And you know, one of the things that, again, I'm going to ask you a question about close-up, or more specifically, the approach to groups, because this is a question I get on the channel as well. I think that magicians stress about, should I do this trick? Should I do this trick? Should I do this trick? And the hardest thing, in my opinion, is to walk up to a group of people who don't know who you are, and within a couple of seconds, get them to not only want to actually stop talking amongst themselves, but listen to you and pay attention to what you've got to say. That's real magic. Yeah, forget about the trick you're doing. Any advice on the approach, or on how to get a group of people to listen to you?
Yeah, well, I'm that guy, and I think magicians, we're the worst to get the worst word we hate to hear is no, or no thank you. We hate that word, because then we have to go back to that corner and we have to relocate everything and reposition everything in our pockets, because we have to get back in mindset that we just had a no, you know? So what I try to do, one, is that when I was working the restaurant circuit, it was a pretty big restaurant as far as open seating. And I try to do things, it was still my go-to line if I do something like this in the beginning. I have my fire wallet that I just come up and I just crank it up, there's fire, and I put it out real quick, and I'll turn my head and look at another table, because they're looking at me like, what is that? I go, don't worry, I'll be there in a second. So now I've introduced myself to that table before I've even gotten to that table. And then I'll go and do a trick out of Magic Menu, which was where I would take a piece of flash paper and I had a big kiss mark on it, a little stamp of lips. And I would have a mom blow a kiss at it, and I would light it, and it would turn into a Hershey kiss. And I would give it to the kid or give it to the mom. And again, that little piece of flame would get these other tables watching and get their attention. So now I've piqued their interest without being at their table yet. So that was one way I did it at the restaurant. I was always inviting myself to the table before I got there by going, I'll be there in a second, kind of doing it that way. Now, if I'm doing like just strolling around at someone's company function, I'll try to get really in with either the boss or someone that's there that everyone knows, and kind of have them be my intro person for a while. Like she or he will pull me around to these crowds. You got to see this. You got to see this. I'll do it a few times, and that's just to get the ball rolling and letting this guy let him be the intro guy. Sometimes we'll go to an event where they'll have a stage and they'll have the boss will kind of do an intro, and I'll come up and do like a quick 5-minute trick before I do my main show, and then go, hey, by the way, I'm going to be walking around doing magic. Just want to say hello. Fun times tonight. It's going to be fun. And I love when I can do that, because now the ice has been broken. So now they're expecting it. But then I think, when we're doing these strolling things, here's another tip. Find out where the photographer is. Because at the end of when this is done, when the event's over, you want to be in these pictures, because they want to go, that guy was working his ass off. And they're going to see you in pictures, producing sponge balls, producing money, whatever you're going to be doing. But, because there's nothing better than seeing their clients like this. Yeah. And then if you can get with that photographer before you start and go, hey, here's what's going to happen. When they put this in their hand, it's going to open up. They're going to have a face expression. You want to get that shot. And once you can tell these photographers what the money shot, that's gold for you as a performer, because they got these memories forever that they're going to have, and they're going to pass around the office and stuff. So, yeah, those are. But yeah, I think rejection is hard on magicians. As long as we can get past that, then it's home free.
Absolutely. And I love that tip with the photographers. I really do. I see some magicians' websites, and it's all pictures of them looking cool, holding playing cards, holding
Yeah.
coins, and it's all pictures of them. And then I see other magicians' websites, and there's one picture of them maybe, and the rest of it is just people losing their mind. I know which magician I'd want to go for. I'd want to go for the magician where everybody's having I don't want to go for the guy who looks like he knows how to pose, and the way to do that is to get really good quality photos, and that's a great tip on how to do that.
Well, think about, when people go see David Copperfield, if you do a meet and greet after the show, there's a spot for you to stand right there, and David stands right here, and what's behind him? His David Copperfield. It's the same shot, and it's perfectly lit for him. So it's the same thing with us when we're doing these shows. If I'm doing a birthday party, I'll tell the mom, hey, before the show starts, stand right there at the beginning, because what I do at my kids show, my birthday show, I'm going to produce my bunny rabbit at the very beginning of the show, because first, every magician does it at the end. No one's expecting it at the beginning. I even tell the kids, unfortunately, I couldn't bring a bunny rabbit, and there's a little bit of disappointment. But when I produce that bunny at the beginning of my show, like in the first 5 minutes, it kind of gets everybody off guard because they didn't see that coming. It's a right, then a left. But I tell Mom, I go, when Johnny produces this bunny, be right there. And when I pull this drawer out, his face is going to be your shot. And that's the shot I get all the time, is that one shot. And it's because I tell her to stand right there. So as long as you know where the money shot's going to be, as long as you know the shot, position the kid to be in a certain spot. If you've got a logo on the back of your table, make sure the kid's standing over here so your logo's in the shot. I mean, there's a lot of logistics that I'm thinking about, as far as marketing and stuff during your show. But I don't want bad shots. I don't want bad pictures of me floating around. I want the best shots for them. I want to look good on me, because at the end of the day, it's marketing for me, and it's going to make their kid look good too.
Again, absolutely agree with you. Now, I want to actually ask you one other question. When you perform kid shows, what is it you wear? Because I see so many magicians that dress up like Silly Billy, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I've always been kind of not on that wavelength. I'd rather dress more cooler sort of thing. And for somebody that's trying to appeal to the adults as well as the kids, would you say that how you dress is important as well?
For me, it is. I've tried to go, so in the wintertime, I'll wear this. I'll wear the black vest, black shirt, and a tie. And usually the tie, because I thought, Craig, this is going to be more proper, so I actually tied it tighter for you. But now that I know that we're casual, I can undo this now a little bit, because I'm usually much more casual like this. So I like being more casual like this, unbuttoned. But in the summertime, it's just a nice black T-shirt with my vest on, black pants, black shoes. That's pretty much it. But in the winter, like I said, I'll wear a shirt with a tie, just to give it a different look in the wintertime. But in the summer, there's just no way I can wear a tie around with the heat that we have here in Georgia. It's too humid. So it's just usually a black, and my pants, of all things, are golf pants. So they're very flexible. You can sweat in them good, but they still look dressy. They're not like proper dress slacks. And I used to wear like a nice pair of black jeans, but again, they can sweat on you in the summer. So I've learned to wear these golf pants, and they just fit nice. And yeah, so, and you got to be comfortable. If you're going to do 3 of these or 4 of these in a day, you got to be comfortable. And I even hate to bring this up, but we all know they're out there. Stinky magicians. If you want to kill yourself, stink. If you want to go there and show up and having to get there in front of Mom and have stinky breath, you're killing yourself before the show even starts. So if you're going to beat them, if you sweat a lot, have another shirt in your vehicle that you can change into between shows. It was Gary Dunn who gave me the idea of putting dry sheets in your shirt, because as you sweat, the fabric off that dry sheet starts to, it gets out from the sweat. And I'm like, that's great. So yeah, so there you go. I went off another right turn for you though.
But again, brilliant advice. And Gary Dunn is an amazing magician. He's an amazing kid.
Oh, I got a chance to go over there and do their convention a couple years ago. It was my first time being in the UK. And talking about nerves, I was nervous because I was told by several magicians here in the States, they go, "Oh, Ken, they're gonna eat you up. They're gonna eat you up." So I was already nervous going over there, and it actually was one of the best times of my life. I had so much fun at their convention, and I was so just accepted from the moment I arrived that I can't wait to go back. But it was, Gary Dunn and John Kimmons, a lot of those guys over there, I just love to watch. Some of their stuff they do over there that you guys get to do over there, we can't do here. Some of the humor that they pull off, it doesn't work over here. But we all like hanging out and talking shop. So yeah.
Yeah, Gary and John and the Tricks in the Sticks convention. It's they put so much time and effort into that. They really do.
It's not your normal kid convention, that's for sure.
No, it really isn't. It's very, very different. Very, very different. You mentioned at the very, very beginning about virtual shows. Now, you're somebody, and we were talking about this off camera, you're somebody that's embraced this virtual world. And I can tell that with the setup that we have with the camera and the backdrop and everything. There's been a lot of magicians that have basically took the opportunity to take 18 months off over the last 18 months. I know that you've been really busy doing virtual shows. Do you think virtual shows are here to stay, Ken? Do you think it's something that will continue even sort of when the pandemic ends?
If you'd asked me that, first of all, if you'd asked me last year when this broke out in April, March for us, we all kind of thought, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, right? That's kind of how we were all in that 2-3 week process. It'll go away in 3 weeks. And then we go, all right, by May, it'll be gone. Okay, by June, it'll definitely be gone. And then we soon realized that wasn't happening. And I got to learn something. So it was back in April of last year that I've got a good friend of mine who is in production. He does a lot of TV stuff here in Georgia, a lot of for movies and talk shows and stuff. So he was out of work too, but he has 30 years of experience in this field of lighting, cameras and stuff. So he came over and helped me set up a small studio just so I can get up and do some stuff. And I'm talking bare bones. Now, I would say over the last 18 months, I have spent more and more, but he told me what I needed to get then, because if you recall, if you've talked to anybody about this, to try to get like a switcher, a camera switcher, was nearly impossible. Back in April, May, June, July of last year, you had to buy it off eBay and pay crazy amount of money. That's because they couldn't keep them in stock, because everybody was doing virtual, and they needed to do these web camera stuff. So you couldn't find. So he got me onto the equipment that I knew that I would need before I knew I needed it. So I was lucky to have him around. Then I learned, and I set up more lights and stuff. And I figured if it's going to be here for a while, I want to make this nice for me. So I basically turned my basement into a studio where it used to be tripods of lights. Now the lights are hanging like a proper studio. I've got a proper desk that's a nice standing desk. It's almost like a cockpit. So I think, to answer your question, I went a long way to do that. I think, yes, they will be here some way or another. If the very least, which we all want to go back to live performances, no doubt. That's how it's going to be. I want to do that. But I think, let's say you're going to do a corporate event and you need to talk to the corporate guy who's booking you, maybe the human resource person that's booking at this company. I think having a Zoom meeting with them and doing like an audition that's where this is going to come into play, and have all this nice stuff. So I can do a Zoom trick with them right then and sell them, as opposed to be on the phone with them. I think this is where it's going to come into play better. So I think Zoom could be here. I think we could see this. Do I think we're going to see kids' birthday parties? I think if we're going to see kids' birthday parties, it's only because they can't get out. I don't think parents want to have kids' birthday parties, doing Zoom. But it's a good alternative. Do I think schools may have this? I think over here, schools all have these big boards, these video boards in their room. And we could broadcast into these classrooms if we can't physically come to the school right now, because right now, I can't see them wanting to get 500 kids at a time together to come see a show. But they may get 20 together in their classroom and me broadcast to the room. So that might be an alternative going forward right now for school shows, which is, I would say, 65, 70% of my work, my income. So I've got to figure that market out and see what's going to happen this year. So right now we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen with that. It's just we're all kind of learning as we go on that. And I think magicians have been more open to learning this stuff, the virtual stuff, more so than any other entertainment industry. I think we had to learn it, and there's been some great magic out there, some great shows, and there's been some crap too, but there's been some really good things. I mean, Justin Willman, I was teasing with him. He had a really great show, and he made probably more money staying at home selling virtual tickets than he did if he was on the road, because he had to travel, hotel, and airports. So there was something to say about that, but not all of us have a Netflix show either. So yeah, but he's got a great show. He's got a good following too. So, but yeah, I think virtual will be here. I think it's going to stay here some way or another. I'd hate to know I spent all this money for this and not use it. So
no, I agree with you. I think it's going to be here forever. I think it will become an option. It's, you know, those magicians that have a website and it's like, click here for close up, click here for stage, click here for
virtual.
It'll be, some guys will have click here for my virtual shows. And I think you are right. I think a lot of companies are going to have hybrid events where rather than flying 5,000 people into a venue, they can save money by flying the 200 most important people into a venue and then live streaming it out to everyone else. So.
Absolutely. And I think that also, if companies decide to keep their employees at home, I think they're going to want to bring them together for, you know, more times than not. And I think that's going to be the time where we want to get them to say, hey, bring us in, let us do a live show for you when you're going to bring your employees in. I think that might be another way that we go in and do live shows for these companies. There might be more times we could do live shows for them. So who knows? But yeah, I think you're right. There could be more hybrid events. Somebody did ask something about at our IBM convention, because we had to do virtual, and they said, will you do this again? And you know, as a person who I produce conventions, to have a virtual convention and people at the convention is tough, because if you book a convention, you got to pay a lot of money to get that space at a hotel. You got to buy food and beverage for the hotel to give you this space meeting for free. If people just pay you $300 to watch it from their home, they don't have to buy an airplane ticket. They don't have to buy hotel tickets. So there is, and then some artists, some performers don't want their stuff taped, and I don't blame them. You know, how often have you gone to a Blackpool or a convention and you've sat there and videotaped somebody? It doesn't happen. So I don't know why it would happen on this, you know, when people think it'll happen now. It could happen, but I don't see it happening as far as conventions. So, but we're lucky that we've got this medium to work with, though. Otherwise, we would not have been in touch with each other.
Absolutely. And on the subject of virtual shows, one more question. As somebody who's openly, I find, again, I get lost in questions on the channel about this sort of thing. One question that people give me is, when you're performing virtually, whether it be for kids or whether it be for adults, how do you get that interaction? Because if you're performing over Zoom, and let's say you're performing to 50 kids from all different parts of the country, you know, you might have to put them on mute, else it's going to be completely ridiculous.
Yeah.
How can you build that sort of interactive element that is so, you know, one of the key benefits of booking a magic show is having it really interactive, but you're now all of a sudden the kids are on mute. You can't have that level of, you can't really hear what they're saying. Yeah.
Sure.
How do you?
So some of the things that, again, this goes back to material. If I just sit there and do a bunch of corny magic tricks just meant for kids, I'm definitely going to have the parents sit off the camera and they're going to sit there and text off the side of the camera. But if I can engage right through the camera and do something like an invisible deck, or do like Torched and Restored right there in front of the camera, you know, reach into them and say, hey, Craig, give me, what is your birthday, and write your birthday down. Give me your favorite color. If I can write these things down and do it this way and do this stuff right there, then, you know, all of a sudden you've heard this tagline, the magic now is happening in the front row. They're happening right there with you. You know, if we can do is it Woody Aragon's trick where you rip 4 cards, you put 3, you throw some away, and if I could have them do it at their house, any kind of interactive trick where they're at their house doing card tricks is gold right now, because now it literally is the way it's supposed to happen. Is I have no control of where your cards are. So I think doing something like that and coming through and doing something while they're there is just that's where we've got to go with that kind of stuff. And then having stuff like, you know, guessing how many pieces of bubble gum's in the jar, that kind of stuff. And you know, there's switching camera stuff. You know, I saw Rubik's Cube stuff was big this year, but I think, you know, also you got to have the mute all button or it will be loud. But I can go in and have, you know, 2 families unmuted at a time, so I can at least get that audible. Or I've got some audible tracks in my arsenal. So when I take the bottle and make it vanish, I'll hit my track and they'll go, oh my God. and that was just recorded from another show. But at least the audience is hearing, oh my God. So you can record these tracks and just play it, and they think that it's live. At least they're hearing the audible, and they think that it's all part live. So does that make sense?
That makes absolute sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Love that.
But if you can find like 2 or 3 families to unmute that you know they don't have dogs barking and they don't have crazy stuff going on, then you just keep them unmuted, or go through your gallery as I'm going through and go, hey, the Palmer family, how are you? And unmute them and just have a conversation with them and go, what is that picture behind you there? I love that picture. And that way now you're really going through there, and you're shaking hands with them through the screen, basically, is what I'm doing when I'm talking and asking about, oh, is that a Sony? What is that behind you there? Whatever. So they've invited you into their house, basically.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Brilliant advice. Now,
Thank you.
Obviously, we've talked about your career. You've been very, very successful. Everything that you've done, you've been successful. Even during lockdown and during the last 18 months and during COVID, you've been very successful. Let's talk about the IBM, because as somebody who is very, very busy, and let's be honest, you are very, very busy. You're a busy performer. You're busy with the business side of things. I know you organize your own conventions, which we'll talk about in a minute. You now find yourself in a position where you're now the president of the IBM. How did that come about? And it's you're already a busy guy. Kind of what made you go, yes, I'm going to do this?
It's a good question. So if you'd asked me 5 years ago, I would have said, no way, I don't have time. 3 years ago, my mom passed away, and she got me into to magic. And she pulled me, she would drive me literally to the local IBM club here. And back in the 80s when you didn't have a cell phone, and we would have to drive 40 minutes north, and it wasn't like she could go home. And I didn't want her to come in, so she would have to sit out there in her car waiting on me while I was in this magic club meeting. So I just thought, when she passed 3 years ago, I thought, this is maybe the time that I'm getting, my kids are older now. They're off into college. I've got a little more time where I can kind of do this and give myself to this organization that I think has been great to me since I was, a young teen. So, and I thought, it's definitely for sure that you've seen organizations are dying off a little bit. And, if I can somehow bring some new energy into it, not to say that I can in a year, but if I can bring something to it that maybe hasn't been brought to it, then it's worth it, because I don't want to see these organizations go away. I love them. I think they're important to us. I think people often ask with the IBM, where's the benefit? And I think the benefit left a long time ago when we were kids, when we were younger. That was the benefit. Now it's time for us to give the benefit back. We got from it when we were younger. And I tell people, oh, there's so many great things about it. And, like I say, we got a great little magazine, the Lincoln Ring. And they go, oh, I never read that thing. I go, well, you read it when you were a kid. It was probably your only thing you had to read when you were younger. So, I used to get great tricks out of it. So I just don't want to see these things go. And I just thought it was a time for me to try it out. And it's not like I'm locked into it forever. It's a year and it'll be done. And maybe I was hoping it'd give me time to travel and see places, like come to England. But unfortunately, I think you guys are going to be doing a virtual convention, I believe, in September for their IBM.
I believe so.
Yeah. So I would be, the president would be over there for that, and that's not going to happen. But if it gets me out there and I can do some more stuff and be on the magic side of it, then I want to see the organization thrive. And I don't know. We'll see what happens. I want to basically, I don't want to bankrupt the company, and I want to get more members that when I came in,
And for people that are watching this that are into magic, but they're not a member of the IBM, what is the reason? Why should somebody who's watching this, as the president of the IBM, why should they join the IBM?
I think just to be a part of an organization with like-minded individuals, and to say you're a part of an organization that all love magic as much as you do, and it's tough to sell that to teens when most of their stuff is on YouTube, but again, some of the best memories I have are from a magic convention, sitting there jamming at a convention with people. And you can't get that watching YouTube. You can't get that watching videos. And you only get that at Magic conventions. And I think just the being around people that love Magic, there's just something to say about it. And to know that organizations have been around for 100 years. You know, when you think about Harry Blackstone and Harry Houdini, we're all involved in IBM and SAM. It's just mind-boggling to think about that. And you don't want to see that legacy that die off. And you know, I think it's what, $60 I think it is to join. I think it is. And there's just so much content now. We've got so much content on the IBM website that you can go and find an interview with Lance Burton. You can go and find an interview with Joshua J. There's just so much content now.
That's great. That's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And how do you, I don't know if it's like this over in the States, Ken, maybe you can tell me, but over in the UK, we have a bit of a problem in that a lot of the Magic clubs and a lot of the societies, it's all older members, and a lot of the younger generation aren't going to Magic clubs. Maybe because they're finding the stuff on YouTube. Maybe it's because of things like Reddit and Facebook pages. I don't know what the reason is, but we're tending to find that there's less younger people. So it ends up being sort of club meetings with lots of old people sitting around drinking beer and reminiscing about the old days.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a problem over there, but if it is, what can we do about that to get new blood in?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's asked all the time. I am reminded though when I tell people that they go, we need more juniors. We need more juniors. When I was that kid growing up, there might have been 2 or 3 of us at that small regional convention, right? There might have been 3 of us at this little convention that we went to. That same convention that happens now, there might be 2 or 3 juniors at that same convention. So as we look and we say the juniors have died off, no, we just haven't gained anymore. I don't know if we're not gaining enough. And the members, you know, so I kind of like to say we need to get more people that are in their 20s and 30s and 40s involved. We need to get more of those people involved because they, you know, because if you bring in the dad who's got a kid, if you bring in the dad who's 30 or 40 years old, he's got a son, chances are he's going to bring his kid with him. He's going to get his kid involved. They can get into an event. If they can get together and do something father-son together or father-daughter, this is the way to do it. And not, you know, the juniors are great. We got to get them involved, but they don't have the pockets that some of these adults have. And so we got to get the 30-year-olds, the 40s, and the 50-year-olds. For that matter, we got to get even the retired people, like grandparents, granddads want to learn tricks. They play golf with their buddies. They want to learn a new trick. They love Magic. They want to show their grandkids. So I don't want to close the door on anyone. But you're right. It comes a time where sometimes just the way the club meeting is ran is so boring. Maybe we got to learn how to run a better club meeting so it's not as boring. So teens, and then sometimes we've got to be welcoming to the juniors. I've gone to some clubs where we're just not welcoming enough to juniors. Like we really need to get up there and show us what you got. You know, get up there and this is such and such. Let me show him that card move you got. And then they don't have to. A lot of times kids today, if you notice, they're doing moves this way and they don't look up at you.
Yeah.
There's no looking up. There's no eye contact. And that's where I think our juniors are falling short a little bit, is that because they're stuck in the video mode and they don't want to look up. And that bothers me. And they don't know how to engage and look eye to eye with somebody. But it's no different than our kids nowadays without Magic. They could be in the same room and they'll text their buddy that's sitting just right there. They'll text them instead of just, hey, you want to go eat pizza? You know, so it's that. But yeah, listen, there's so many different things we got to do or try to do. But one is just to try to get people that love Magic into it. And I think Magic is on a good spot right now. I think there's a lot of great Magic going on, and I think Magic's very popular right now.
So yeah, I mean, can you tell me, Ken? So, any thoughts on how we can get more older people into the convention, into the IBM then, and various different Magic clubs?
Older or younger?
Yeah, well, I mean, both really, I suppose. Yeah. Younger definitely, because we need the new blood. Yeah. But I suppose that we just want to, it's like you said, you know, you want to finish your presidency with more people in the IBM than you had when you started. Exactly.
And it seems like, you know, unfortunately, we had as every year for IBM, we have read off people we lost. And the list was quite long this year. And we are in an organization, as far as all organizations across the board are losing members. So we got to figure a way to get that members built back up. And you know, as much as I want to say it starts with the juniors, it starts with people who just love magic, and we've got to get people out there and just show them why you want to come to this meeting. We got to take out the boring meeting stuff of it, the boring, you know, bylaw stuff that we have to sit there and talk about at a meeting, and take the politics out of it, and just remember why we're there, to show magic. And I think if we can introduce our insurance guy who just loves card tricks and introduce him to magic, you know, it might spark an interest in that guy. And again, like I told you earlier, that maybe there's older people that are retired who play golf with their buddies and want to learn a few coin tricks, a few card tricks. It's a perfect place to bring them to, is to, you know, have them. A lot of times magicians are so close guarded, they don't want to bring these guys in who want to learn this stuff. And that's why sometimes people don't feel as welcome to these clubs, because it's all about secrets and we don't really know them yet. They haven't passed, they haven't knocked on the door properly. So we've got to get more welcoming to these clubs to make it more inviting to the juniors, and to anyone else that just has an interest in magic and not realize that they're going to, you know, steal our shows. Because there's two different people that are in the clubs. You got, you know, amateurs, you got semi-pro, and you got professionals. And the professionals are always worried, oh, this guy's going to come in and take my shows. And that happens everywhere. They're always worried that guy is going to come in and take my shows. So once we let that go and don't, you know, realize that you got to have confidence in yourself and don't worry about, you know, you can't teach the guy everything you want him to learn, but you know, we're a welcoming art, and we've got to remember that.
And like you said before, magic is so popular right now.
Yeah.
Like, so popular. Over here, the last season of Britain's Got Talent, BGT, half the acts in the final were magicians. And over there, AGT, magic's king. I mean, you look at somebody like Shim Lim, that, you know, right, the whole thing. I mean,
Matt Franco that's another prime example. I mean, look at him. Yeah, and that, which brings it back to another thing. If I recall, what the guy who did something very easy, if I recall, like something like all magicians knew, and wasn't the judges like, just, they were like, oh my God, how did you do that? And we're all like, that was the easiest trick. If I recall, I think I saw a video of that, of the UK guy.
I think you're probably thinking about, I think it was Jamie Raven a couple of years ago on BGT that did Dan Harlan's stickman trick.
Cartoon deck.
Cartoon. He just went out there, did cartoon, which is a gimmick trick that every single person has owned. You first get into magic, you probably get an invisible deck, a Svengali deck, a stripper deck, and then you get cartoon. And he went out there, got a standing ovation, just based off doing that trick.
But assuming he had a great character. We talked about, this goes back to character. If you can pull it off, you know, pull it off. I mean, there was, sometimes we're often asked, you know, you can't, guys say, oh, you can't do thumb tip magic anymore because it's in kids' magic kits. And I'm like, oh, I still slay kids with that, even though it's in their magic kit. You know, as long as you do it right and do it in the right way and do it with confidence, it's going to kill. But yeah, there you go.
It's very true. And you know what? There's a lesson to be learned from that sort of thing. I think that because there's so much new magic that comes out every day, like you refresh somewhere like Murphy's and Penguin, and every day, 30 new tricks. I think that magicians think that the key to success is finding that trick that's going to make them a star. I just haven't found that right trick yet that's going to make me famous. As soon as I found it, and it's not, you know as well as me, it's not about that. We dismiss the stuff that was out years ago because, oh, it's old, but it's still it's so old it's new. You know, we talked earlier on about people like Michael Close and John Bannon. That material is as good now than anything else that's coming out.
I tell you, I don't think I've ever seen anyone do a chop cut better than Paul Daniels. I think he was the king, and I've seen many guys try to pull off that routine that he did. And I saw him do it in a theater with 2,000 people, and people were just roaring. But yeah, you got to find what's you, and then you got to find the material that's you. You know, I've always said that I love, like, if I had to pick people who I love to watch perform, is Dave Williamson and Chad Long. I just love the two of those guys and the way they banter with the audience, and I kind of copy them or do what they're, you know, find out how they're doing it and find my Ken Scott in them, because I just love how they work with them. Growing up, I used to watch, I don't know how old you are, Craig, but Del Rey. Do you remember Del Rey? Did you ever get a chance to see Del Rey?
Yeah. I remember.
So, yeah, to see a Del Rey, that was just, it was, I mean, he was so character, and you were just, if you didn't like him, there was something wrong with you, because you loved that man. When he was done, you wanted to just give him money. I mean, he was that, his character was so character driven, and I think he was that way off the stage too. So it wasn't like he was a new character. It was that same, guy that you met off the stage. So, I think find that character, and yeah, and that, know that could change too over time. You may have to change your characters sometimes.
Well, you've mentioned characterization a few times. How do you have any advice about finding that character? Because there's there's different degrees to it, isn't there? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, Ken Scott as a character is one thing, and then you've got somebody like John Vanderput, Piff the Magic Dragon, who's gone completely in a different direction. I remember John before Piff even came about, and he was one of these close-up workers, and he was very good, but he looked the same as everyone else. He was doing the same tricks as everyone else. And then one day somebody turned around to him and said, you know what, you need to put a dragon suit on and get really grumpy, and bang, he's a Las Vegas headliner. And that's changing your character. And there's so many different degrees to it. Is there any advice on changing, on creating this character? Because you mentioned it so much during the interview.
I would say my character isn't much different off the stage, so I don't have to change my character as much. It's just I have to change my my confidence sometimes, and then change. Is like I'm doing kid shows. I've got to be the alpha male in kid shows. They've got to know that I'm the one that's in control. Otherwise, they will eat you up. So it's not so much character. It's just I got to know my material. I got to know, where I'm going to go with my stuff. I think I've never been to improv school. I've never done improv, but I think I can think pretty quick on my feet. And if one can do that, that's half the battle. And that's also in an adult show, in a kid show. So I know a lot of guys do improv. If that helps someone, then do improv, learn improv, or read comedy writing. But be ready to be quick on your feet. If someone gives you a line, you got to know what to do with it. Speaking of Piff, I became good buddies with him this past year, meeting him at Magic Live last year, and he's a huge teddy bear, and I love his act. I love everything about what he's doing off the stage. I still don't have to call him Piff or John, but he's just he's just so much fun to be around, and yet everyone thinks he's that grumpy old dragon, but yeah, he's got some really good chops.
He's incredible as a close-up worker.
I could see that.
That anymore, but I remember entering a close-up competition, and the first time I'd really met John, he was in the competition with me, and I went out, and it was the Blackpool close-up competition, so it was a big deal. We talked about close-up. It was in front of about 2,500 people. And I went out and I was like, yeah, I did a good job there. That was really good. And I walked off to the side and I was watching John, and he finished his close-up act. He finished by making a dog appear. and I'm like, well, that's it. I'm done. That's it. How do you top making a dog appear in the middle of a close-up show? That's it.
He's the one that you should talk to about character, because he's found that character and married it over and over again. That character. I mean, that's and maybe that's a good thing. He can be John and be Piff and not be bothered. I mean, he don't have to be Piff all the time. He could take the dragon suit off and almost not be recognizable. So maybe that's by choice. Most magicians want to be recognized while they're having dinner, but maybe he's the guy who doesn't. I don't know, but I mean, he's found it, and it would be tough for. I think someone did copy his act, if I'm not mistaken. Did I see this somewhere where someone did put a dragon suit on?
Like literally word for word, which was just ridiculous, seeing somebody else that's not John doing that, and
but I think that comes in a good when you can get an act and someone, because who could copy Del Rey? Who could copy Rudy Kobe? You think of these acts, who can copy Paul Daniels? I mean, no one can. But when you see a guy do it, you go, that's nothing like Piff. I think when you get to that part of your, when you can have that much confidence in your style of performing, when they go, that was great. You can't be compared to such and such. You can, it's your own. You own it. So I think when Piff's got an act like that, and they go, yeah, you should see Piff do the act. So that says a lot about character and the way you write your stuff, your material.
Oh, for sure, 100%.
Yeah.
Let me ask you one more question, Ken. And the last question I want to ask you is, what's next for you? Like, what goals and aspirations do you have? Is there anything left on your magical bucket list that you haven't achieved yet? Because let's face it, you've done a lot. You've done so much. You've been a very high level as a performer your entire career. You're now the IBM president. I mean, is there anything else that you're wanting to achieve on your magical bucket list? Like you talked about lecturing at Tricks. Is there any other conventions that you'd like to lecture at? Is there anything else that you'd like to do?
Yeah, I want to travel more. I would love to, there was a time when I wanted to try my hand at cruise ships. This was back before I really had kids. And I said, I want to do cruise ships. I want to try it out. But then at that time, you had to do cruise ships. You were gone for, a month or two at a time sometimes. It wasn't like these 1 week, 2 week type trips they have now. So I kind of backed out of that because my kids were all, growing up, and I didn't want to be away. That was my thing. I didn't want to be away a long time from my daughters and my family. Now that they are growing up, I got a 25-year-old, a 21-year-old, and an 18 now. I've got a little more time I could do this. So I wouldn't mind trying my hand at cruise ships. And to be honest with you, I don't even like cruise ships, but I love the idea of that stage. I love a stage, a proper, intimate stage. There's just nothing better than having all of that in the stage, the perfect seats and stuff. I love that. So I love that aspect of it. If you could say, hey, Ken, we got a theater we want you to work, I would love that. I did a theater. I should say a theater. I did this outdoor amphitheater every Friday this summer, and it was consistency, and I loved it. Different audience every Friday night, but it was me on a platform, people coming prepared to see a magic show. I think there's nothing better than when they come and see you do a show, when people are prepared, like the Magic Castle. That's why the audience is primed, because they are prepared to come see a show. They're prepared to come see magic. Like at the Magic Circle, people are prepared to see magic. It's when people just say, hey, you want to go see this magic show? When like Alpha Whim, they weren't prepared for that. I remember when Copperfield would roll into town, and it would be an event. People would go out and get dressed up for it, arrive in fancy cars to the theater, go have dinner or whatever. And they were prepared to see David Copperfield. It was a big event when he rolled through town with those rigs on the side of the street with all of his gear. And in Vegas, he's there, and some people maybe not plan to go see a Piff or see David. They just some may win a ticket, or the hotel may comp them. So it's different settings. But I want to, if I can get my own theater one day, or some kind of small theater, or do that kind of work, I would love that. I mean, that would be my dream, is to get some type of theater. I don't know where that would be, but maybe I could try a cruise or two and see if I like that. I don't know. Who knows? But I guess that's I want to work less and make more money, though. I know that for sure.
That's the dream, isn't it? Yeah,
that's the dream.
You go out and do 100 shows a month when you can do 50 and make the same amount of money or more. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, completely. But again, that comes back to running it like a business, which we've discussed about, and it's so important that people do that.
Yeah.
And talking about, and one other thing that magicians tend to, a lot of magicians I speak to, especially the very successful ones, they talk about having multiple income streams. Now, I don't know if this is an income stream for you or not, but you've mentioned a few times about running your own conventions.
Yeah. So I run the IBM convention. I'm the chairman for that convention, which I make no money on that. That's just doing that, giving back to the IBM. But I do have a convention that I used to attend as a junior here in Atlanta called the Atlanta Harvest of Magic. And it was basically a small regional convention that I just loved going to as a kid. And then it stopped. The husband and wife that owned the magic shop back when I was a kid, they stopped doing the convention. And it didn't happen for many, many years. And then I would run there would be a Eastern conference, magic conference, that would go from different cities, and a different club would pick it up, and we would pick it up in Atlanta like every other year. And again, I would run it, and we would do very, really well with it. But again, it was me doing, the club doing a lot of work, and then the club would go back, the money, if we made any, would go back to the club. So I thought, God, I'm working a lot on this stuff. I'm bringing a lot of my buddies in, doing favors for me, and I'm not making any money. I said, let me try to have my own convention. So I tried it. And then my friend said, why don't you just call it the Atlanta Harvest? So I basically brought the name back from the dead and used that name again. So that's kind of how I did that. But I only do it every other year. And my wife basically, because she knows once I get into convention mode, they won't see me for a month, because it's, when I start getting into late August, it's straight, Atlanta Harvest stuff. Because I want it to, for me as a producer, it's a jigsaw puzzle. And I've got so many different ideas, and it all comes together at the convention. It all comes together as one beautiful puzzle, but I don't typically get to see the convention because you're running around, you're seeing this, you're never in the moment there for any given time because you're thinking 2 steps ahead of you to convention. But it makes a little bit of money. It's enough money to make it worth its while, but it's not enough to make me do it every year. So I make it a special event by doing it every other year. So,
well, as somebody, one final question, and that I wasn't going to ask this, but it's something that I think people would find interesting. As somebody that runs their own convention, what can a lecturer do to get on that bill? Because so a lot of people go and lecture. It happens as part of the creative process. It's kind of like you get into magic, you buy magic tricks, you learn how to perform those magic tricks, you develop a style, you then start to create your own stuff. Maybe you market a few bits and pieces, you then put together a lecture and you start doing lectures, maybe in local clubs or whatever. Your goal then becomes to get on a convention. That's the big deal, isn't it? I'm on the bill on a convention. As somebody who organizes conventions, what does we're not talking about a Greg Wilson, a Richard Sanders, a Sean Farquhar, a Jay Sankey.
Right.
Talking,
a no name. A no name
that's got a lecture, maybe a product or two. They want to get on a convention. What do they need to do to get on your radar?
Great question. I love having those, and I try to put maybe 1 or 2 of them on my bill every year. One, they're a little cheaper, but then they got to know they're not going to make a lot of money at the magic conventions, other than their product sales. But I love bringing those people on. I think we did that a lot this past year for the IBM. Sean brought in, I would say, more than half the people we never heard of. But we will hear about them in 5 years, in 6 years. We're going to know about these people. So I think that it's very important to bring these people in. So yeah, for me, it's just approaching that person who's booking it and just telling them, hey, here's what I can do. Here's what I have. They're going to love this, and tell us why they're going to love it. And say, I know I'm not a name that's going to put people in the seats, but I will be. And that's what you got to tell them. You have the confidence and say, pay me for what I'm worth right now. But, and I know that this stuff's going to be valuable to people. And I like confidence like that. I like guys that have confidence and know that, hey, I know I'm not a name right now, so I'm not going to be someone's not going to come to want to see me, but they will. And I remember having Kostya Clemlin. Do you know him, Kostya?
Oh, yeah. The Roadrunner Cole.
Oh, so he came to my convention, I don't know, 8 years ago, and he just killed. And I don't think a lot of people knew who he was. He wasn't, he was out, but a lot of people didn't. But he was that quiet person at the convention who just slayed it. Like, he was the one who killed that year, and I want to see him again. Mario the Maker. I don't know if you've met Mario yet. Mario the Maker.
I just watched his Penguin Live lecture. It was incredible. Absolutely incredible. What that guy does, just
he's another one that he came to my convention. He came to the Cadabra convention that we have here in the States for family show performers. That's where he did his first convention, and he just knocked it out of the park. And I said, I got to have him at my convention. So I brought him to mine, and people just loved him. They just fell in love with him, and he 2 standing ovations. And again, it was a guy that now it was like Carissa Hendricks, with Darcy. She was doing bubbles. She still does bubbles, but ever since this Luce and Darling took off, she's everywhere, and every convention wants her. So you can see that was just 5 years ago that she wasn't doing many conventions. Now she's at every convention, and everybody wants to have her as a headliner. So you never know. You just approach the convention people with obviously respect, and just tell them, hey, I want to do this. This is what I can do for you. Guarantee them what you can do and show them, and maybe show them some video or something too. But that always, video always helps too. But if you could get someone to back you, like if you've got someone who can say, hey, if you're in friends with somebody, let that person call the guy up and if they know him. I've had a lot of buddies say, hey, Chris Kenner has given me two names before, because Chris Kenner is good with, he knows a lot of underground young magicians that are coming up, and he'll say, hey, this guy's a killer card guy. So yeah, just there's always ways to get in there, but find the person that's in charge of it. I'd say start small. Don't try to go for the big ones. Go for these smaller conventions. Like what's the one in the UK? Southtown? South.
Oh, outside, yeah, Tyneside.
Tyneside, yeah. Maybe hit that one up. Hit a small convention first, and then, I'm still trying to get my way into Blackpool. I've never been to Blackpool yet, so that will be. I'm hoping I can get into that one day.
We need to get this trending. # get Ken at Blackpool. I mean,
come on, do it. Come on. Who's it? Russell? Who books that?
Russell, Russ Brown,
Russ
Barrett, and Russ Stevens.
Yeah, that's my goal. I want to be at Blackpool. I want to be there. I'm not that big of a name, but I'll do great for you. Man,
Blackpool. You'd be awesome at Blackpool.
I remember people telling me. I remember it was Doc Eason. I think he went there. He told me, he goes, Ken, or I forgot who told me this. It might have been Chad Long. I can't remember, but they said I went there. I unzipped my suitcase and they just flocked me. He said I had no product. And my lecture hadn't even started yet. I'm like, so many people went over there with that kind of mindset that they're just going to sell out of their stuff. And some have, some haven't, but I just heard some stories where they just said, I just unzipped my suitcase. When I was at Tricks and the Sticks, I did really, really well there. I'd sold a lot of stuff. I didn't bring a whole lot of stuff, but I even gave my suitcase because I had nothing to put in it. I just gave my suitcase to a guy because I didn't want to check it in and spend another $55 for the case. So that's when you've done well, when you come back with one suitcase.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
But but when I bring out stuff to magicians that buy, what I tell people that if I'm putting something out, if I'm I'm not the best creator in magic. What I can do is I can see something, put my Ken Scott on it, repackage it, make it, put some new bells and whistles on it, but make it fit. But whatever I sell or put out, it's something that's in my show. I'm not gonna just make something to sell it. There are a lot of products out there, but if it's in my show, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for some guys. I know one guy bought some of my products, but the problem was he tried to do it the way I did it, and he failed miserably. And he said, I'm not getting the same reaction. And it was because he wasn't trying to put his spin on it. And so at least when I'm selling something, it is coming from an act that I know has been proven in front of an audience. So that's important.
Well, I was going to bring this up actually as the final point. You are known as a creator of magic as well. Can we talk about that very quickly? First of all, do you have a website where people can go and buy your stuff? I'll put it down.
Yeah.
What's the website? What's the
URL? So it's kenscottproducts.com.
And everything you create is unique to you. It's not like you put it in Murphy's and it goes into all your magic shops.
I've had some DVDs that, early on when I had my birthday, my first product I ever put out was called Making the Birthday Dough. It was basically a live birthday show.
I remember that. That was great. I love that. I've got that over there. It's great.
that was Murphy's carried it for a while. And then I put out Making the Birthday Party 2. And those were two of my main, they got me on the map as far as the family kid show industry. But as far as like creating new things, I have to every year create a new show for library shows, but it might be just taking things and restructuring things I've had in the past in my shows and rewriting them. But as far as making product for magicians, I'm not the best at that. Like if you look at a Barry Mitchell or a Christopher Barnes, I'm thinking guys over here, they can come up with things like this. And if I have one good piece, that might take me 2 years to get it out and how I want it. So as far as creating, I'm not the best creator in magic, but when I come up with something, it's usually pretty good, or at least I like to think it's pretty good. So, but they're few and far between, I would say.
But I mean, over the years, you've built up a decent range on your site.
Absolutely. There's some good things on there that I like to think. There's one thing that I hit on a couple years ago. It was during a Christmas. I wanted to make this teddy bear appear out of an inflatable come out of a box. And I couldn't figure it out. And I was contacting these inflatable companies and thinking, it can't be more than $400 or $500. They wanted like $6,000 to make this unique teddy bear. I was doing a pro mystic trick, where you draw the hat in, the stuff. And as a grand finale, as I did all my predictions and they all matched, as I'm saying goodnight, this teddy bear comes blowing up out of the box that matches all the colors. And I thought this would be a great way to end the show. Well, I couldn't find the teddy bear that nobody wanted to make it for less than $6,000, an inflatable, because I wanted to be like an 8-foot inflatable. So then I thought, all right, what else can I do with this inflatable idea? So I put my yard at Christmas time is blown up for Christmas. We do it up crazy because it looks like the Griswolds, if you know what that is over there.
Mhm.
But I put a Frosty the Snowman in a box, and I put a little on and off switch on it. So me and this kid are working in front of this box, and I press this on and off button where this Frosty starts coming out of the box like this, and the kids are screaming. But me and this kid have no idea what they're screaming about because we're focused on them. But meanwhile, this thing is blowing up behind us. And once we realize it, the kid looks, and this kid's now that's helped me is shocked. So that was a good find that we've turned into, several products as far as like we did one for Halloween. We did several for Christmas. So that was a good find. I did one for an alien show that we did. So it was those kind of things that I stumble on that I have longevity in the Ken Scott market. So.
And most of the routines on your website, family show.
Yeah, most of my stuff is family. The stuff I put out is mostly family stuff. Yeah, so I've really never really put anything out I would say that's just for adults. Although there are a few routines like the 4 nightmares that I carry. Like I carry. You've probably seen this, right? Where this thing here, where you go, it looks normal here, looks tiny here, right? It looks really tiny. Mm-hmm. But if I hold that really up to the screen, it looks really big. But that might be because it is. I don't know, because it might be because it is. So I sell a lot of these kind of props, but I sold a lot of any kind of stuff I was using for my Zoom shows. I started selling that stuff because a lot of the stuff I can't do this trick anywhere else than here. But yeah, I might carry some other people's products. I got big into. I love this kind of stuff. Like, did you see this one with where it turns into focus? Well, let's see. Not focus. There it goes.
Ah, yes, that's my friend Steve Rowe.
Oh, tell him this is genius. I love this thing. But I combine this with Blake with this, having a fake die rolled, and you would do this. So I combined this with his sucker trick. So I like taking a couple tricks and smashing them together.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Never seen that use of the 6-way out before.
Yeah. And then Blake made the mini ones is when I started using the mini one. Because I only had the big one, but this made sense using that. But yeah, so man, a lot of my, like I said, a lot of my stuff is family show stuff, but yeah. So I wish I could create faster than some of these cats do, but I'm not that fast at creating, but I got enough good stuff to hold me over.
And do you have any advice on creating your own trick, whether it be to ultimately market or for your own show? Every year you have to create a new library show. I mean, that's some guys will coast through on the same show forever, and you're changing your show around every single year.
Yeah, it's what kept me. I think fresh in the market is changing the show up, because I think librarians go, he does a new show every year, when really the show is a lot the same, like the opening, the middle, the ending. There's always the structure that I copy every year, but the puppet might look different. He might have a different costume on. But yeah, I want to brand my show. So David Ginn, I mean, he paved the road for a lot of us kids shows when his books in the 70s and 80s, he was the pioneer, really. We rode his back. But ultimately we got in the same market, and I didn't want my show, I didn't want anyone to have anything in their show in my market that they could buy. I didn't want a bunny production, or I didn't want any trick to look like something. I didn't want to worry about another magician who came last week did it too. So if I can rebrand it, repackage it, make it look different, then I've done what I need to do with my show. So if you've got something that you can see, find a way that you can change it so it's not like the directions. And see if you can change things up and make it so it's not straight out of the box, and put your spin on it. So if that means doing this, but adding this, not many guys are putting the two together. So that's a little bit different. So if you can add some different things to it. For instance, I do the Rubik's Cube trick in my show. The one where you ultimately, it starts off mixed up, and this becomes a running gag in my show. I love this, and this is by Henry Harris, which I love all his stuff. So during the show, I talk about I got this when I was 8. This goes back to character. I got this when I was 8 years old. My mom got me this, and it was solved. And then we took it out of the pack, and I mixed it up, and I couldn't get it back together. And I had to get it back together, and it took me 3 days to solve one side. And then I took the stickers off the other sides. That line, the other parents start chuckling. I go, if they're laughing, they did it too, because they did do it. They either broke the pieces off and put it back together, but they did that. So during the show, I go, I'm going to solve this today. There's a teenager who has solved the cube, get this, in like 4.2 seconds. I'm going to do it tonight in 3 with your help. And so the start of my show, I'll go, you ready? Count fair. And I'll do this. I go, oh, you're not ready. And I'll put it back either on my table or in my show here. And then throughout the show, I'll come and get this. They go, all right, it's time to do this. And, all right, I'm not ready. The show is over. I go, you guys have been great. And again, this is in virtual market. This is in live show mode. The show's over. I've said my goodbyes, and the kids go, you haven't done the cube. And I go, oh, the cube. And that's when it gets put into a bag, and it gets changed into, I put it into a sandwich bag. I solve it, but then the sandwich bag is here. They go, there's another one in the bag. And there's nothing better than squishing that bag and throwing it out there. And it's taking these kind of tricks that are already out there and just figuring out how I can make it, go into my kind of style.
But what you've just given there is a masterclass in how to build anticipation.
Yeah.
How to, some guys will go out and they'll do a Rubik's Cube solve. And it's like, look, it's a Rubik's Cube. Now it's solved. Thank you. And they'll get no reaction from it because there's no build-up. What you've got is you've engineered a situation where the kids are on the edge of their seat, desperate for you to do this thing. Yeah. And then they're just going to explode at the end when you do it.
And the parents, I mean, again, when I take that bag, and I had to figure out how to do this. I wish I had a bag to show you, but when I do this in person, obviously I'm not worried about camera, but when you're doing any kind of Nelson bottle vanish, or anything that's going to require you to, squish, if you take this bag out of the shot for just a second, you could have dropped it. So when you're working camera, you got to make sure that you keep this bag in your square. You got to keep it in your rectangle here. You can't go out of the picture. You can't go out of the shot, or else you've done the dirty work. So once I reveal this, the kids have got to believe there's another one in here, and I've got to sell it without dropping it below the screen. So I had to learn how to do that in this TV world, because in live world, we're in person. That's not going to happen. But to build that thing as it goes on and on during the show, because that by the third time I do this, the kids are frustrated that I'm not. That they're like, "Come on," And then when it does get solved, it's almost like when I crush that bag, the parents are like, "You got them. You just got them, little bastards." I got them, and the parents love the fact when I squish it, because right before I squish the bag, I go, "Listen, you guys have been amazing. I'm gonna be honest with you. This is gonna hurt a little bit," and I squish it, and I throw it to a kid in the audience who's just been on me the whole show. He's been heckling me, and when parents go, "I'm sorry, my kid was heckling me," I go, "No, I love hecklers. If they don't give me that, then I don't have my banter back and forth." So it's that kind of stuff, building on that kind of stuff like that. I love little cherries on tricks. I've got a trick I did years ago with these hats, and it's a whole out to lunch principle. It uses these kids' hats and stuff. It's on my site, but that was another, a 3 process where this happened. Oh, and by the way, boom, as a little cherry. So if you're putting tricks together, routines together, think about, a boom, boom cherry, like what can you top it off with? So, yeah.
That's brilliant. That is absolutely amazing. This interview, I have to be honest, has been one of my favorite interviews, genuinely. Like, you are a fountain of knowledge. You really are.
Thanks, man.
It's been amazing having you on the channel. It's been amazing picking your brains. And I hope everybody who's watching this realizes just how much incredible advice that you've freely given, Ken. So
I appreciate, what I think as long as we're all open to learning, I think the moment we stop wanting to learn, I think I teach good because I'm a good learner. I like learning new things. And the moment you're stopped in one spot, not learning new stuff, is when, you become bored. You can become complacent very easily, and you can be passed. So I don't want to become complacent. I don't want to be passed. There was a magician years ago in my market who said, "You're just worried about us leapfrogging you," and it woke me up, because I think I was very on autopilot with my library shows. Didn't have to work as hard at it. But when he said that, I said, you know what, damn it, I don't want anyone to pass me. I want to keep on trying to be on the top of my game. And as long as I can keep on top of my game, I think that's what you got to do. You don't want to become complacent. And we can easily do that, and that makes us not enjoy it. I enjoy doing my shows. I enjoy putting new material in my shows, which brings another point. You probably heard this, the hammock. If you're going to try a new piece, put it between something that you got really good. So if you got a good piece that's really, you're going to just, you could do it in your sleep, put it in the middle there, and then come out the other side with it with another good piece. I think Jeff McBride said this in a lecture. That's great advice to get new material in your show, is to pin it between two really good pieces in your show.
You know what? You're so right, because I've seen so many magicians, and I've done this myself, where you buy this new trick, this new prop to put in your show, and you've practiced it, and you spent a few weeks, and you've got a script down, you're really happy with it. You put it in your case, and you go to the gig, and you're like, right, I'm going to do that, and you end up not doing it, because you want to make sure that you do the best possible show, so you stick to the old stuff, and it stays in your table or your case for like 3 months, and you've not done it.
We call magician's fear. We get there and we go, we got confidence, and then at showtime we go, no, I'm not doing it. Mm-hmm. I've done that to many of tricks of mine that I'll put it in my case, and I don't have any, or we'll do it one time and it fails. That trick just bombed. I'm like, that's not the way I envisioned that. And then it goes, I'm not going to do this trick. I spent $300 for it, but it's not working. It's on surplus. So yeah, I say we got to get more opportunity to it, but then just kind of pin it in there where you can kind of hide it, and not, if it fails miserably, at least you've got some other things that are, that are on the left and right of it that make it stand up. So
absolutely 100%. Ken, I'm going to put a URL down below again. I'm going to put a link in the description where you can go check out Ken's shop. Like I say, you ship worldwide, right? So anybody over the world, fantastic.
Yeah.
And you're available for lectures?
Absolutely. Call me. I'll bring the chain. I'll bring the chain, as long as I'm still in office.
Nice. That's awesome. And you are available, obviously, at some point to lecture at the Blackpool Magic Convention. Russ Stevens.
Come on, please.
Guy Barrett, we're talking to you guys. Yeah, I'd love to see you there. I really would.
Listen, I've heard nothing but great things about that convention. I just heard, if you went just to see the dealers, that could be your experience just for the convention alone, just your dealers.
The dealer hall itself is just an experience that you'll never, ever, you'll not see another dealer hall like it.
That's great.
Interesting. I'm going to start it right now. Hashtag get Ken at Blackpool. We're trending it worldwide.
Thank you.
No problem. It's going to happen. We're going to make it happen. But Ken, thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
Social media, is there anywhere that people can follow you on social media? Or?
Yeah, you can go to Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, Ken Scott Magic. Just follow me on Ken Scott Magic. I'm always posting some just pictures here and there, which, I like taking pictures. If I'm at shows, I love taking the selfies. And another crazy tip, if you want to do, kids know, I've learned this from my own daughters. When I get a phone, because I do a couple phone tricks, I'll get the phone and I'll do this. Like the camera's not right, as you can see. They go, you turn it around. I go, oh, then they'll see that I'm trying to get the selfie. Again, this is just if I've got some kids in there, like teenagers, I'll do this. And I go, I can't see myself. And then I'll turn it around like this. And they go, no, you press this button. And then usually a kid will come up and go, you hit this button here. And I go, oh my God, that's how you do it. So I get these kind of shots where I'm out in the audience is behind me and stuff. And when you can get those shots like that and they're out, in fact, let me get one now. So we're like, hey, I just got to do this. But when you get those kind of shots and you can, flash them over your Instagram or your social media pages, they love going back and seeing themselves in the audience and stuff. So that's good marketing, I think. So, but to act stupid when you don't know how to do cell phones, I think it's just because every dad doesn't know how to do a cell phone. We're all stupid. So, when you kind of act dumb with a cell phone, even though you're a master at it, nobody can take a selfie better than we can. Actually, Teller's pretty good. Teller is, I think he's had the most he said is at 38 people in one shot.
What? Really?
He's a master at doing selfies, and you wouldn't think it, but he is. He's a master at selfies. So
Wow. I didn't even
yeah.
know. That's wow. There you go. I've learned something even right at the very end of the interview. I've learned something else. There you go. We're definitely getting you to Blackpool, Ken. It's going to happen.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Ken. Guys, I want you to do me a favor, and I want you to drop a comment down below. I'm sure Ken will see it. Subscribe to all of his social media and go buy lots of stuff from his shop. Don't forget. Well, oh, do you have a URL for your convention? Because it's coming up.
Oh, yeah. If you, I don't know if they can travel, but a lot of your listeners are here, right? They're in the States.
I have more listeners in the States than I do in the UK.
Yeah, great. I'm glad you asked that. So it's www.atlantaharvestofmagic.com. atlantaharvestofmagic.com. It's gonna
wind up this year.
This year I've got Jeff McBride, Michael Amar, Steve Bedwell. We've got Chad Long coming.
I didn't know he lectured anymore.
Who's that?
I didn't realize Steve was doing lectures anymore.
I begged him. Steve is not doing. He's really just doing talks now. But he's coming back a little bit, doing some lectures. And I met him in Florida, of all places. He lives in Florida now, and that's where we met. And we became pretty good buddies down there. And I just said, "Hey, can you come up to Atlanta and do my convention?" And I would love to. So, I think he's got one of the best rope tricks with the cutting. You've seen, I forgot what he calls that. The toss, I think it's tossed over or something.
Yeah, and his Walkman act is the best act.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, the guy, he's amazing.
So he's going to be here. Brent Braun's going to be here. It's just, I try to book I always say at a Magic convention, you're never going to see these same people together at one convention. You may see them again, but you're never going to see the same lineup, which is true. I don't think you're ever going to see the same lineup of the same guys ever at the same place.
Well, just those names that you've said there are incredible. Yeah. Jeff McBride, Michael Amar, Steve Bedwell, Brent Braun. Wow, what a lineup.
Stephen Bergazzi's going to be there, Chad Long. Yeah. So, and just to I love bringing Chad. Chad is, an old buddy of mine from Daytona Magic days. So there's nothing Chad, I just love Chad. Chad could do the same routine over and over again. Just pull cards from the wall, I tell Chad. Just do that all day long.
Oh, Chad is amazing. Chad is absolutely brilliant.
But yeah, go there, atlantaharvestofmagic.com. It's going to be September 29th or September 30th through October the 2nd. It's that Thursday, Friday, Saturday in Atlanta. And the great thing, it's right next to the airport. So you literally will land and you can get a free shuttle a half a mile down the road to the hotel.
That's great.
So, yeah.
Brilliant.
Come over, Craig. You can do it. Come over. You got time.
I'd love to. I don't know if I'm allowed in America at the moment, but if I am, I would come over there.
I will let you come in. I'll let you come in.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I would love to come over there. Absolutely 100%. I would love to come to that convention. It sounds really fun. But yeah, so there's the URL for the convention. You got the URL for Ken's Magic Shop. You've got all of his social media. Thank you so much. Really,
thank you, guys.
And once again, congratulations, Mr. President.
Thank you. You have been knighted.
I'm excited. This is wonderful. All of my dreams have come true.
I need a sword.
Ken, I'm sure I'll see you again.
Thanks, man.
Very much. Stay safe. Guys, I will see you tomorrow on the channel. 3 videos, 1 at 2, 1 at 6, 1 at 9. I'll see you then. My name's Craig from Magic TV.